Hey, Mark here. I just have a fun announcement for you. So, we recently started doing these Final Fight episodes, and we've been putting them up with the movies, the regular movie, films, and flicks episodes. However, the Final Fight episodes people really loved. So, we figured that we would start a brand new podcast just called Final Fights, brought to you by Movies, Films, and Flicks, where it's nothing but final fights in movies, where we discuss every punch, bite, head kick, gut punch, everything you can think about. We do a lot of research, and they're short episodes. They're probably about 20 to 30 minutes. They're really quick to listen to, and they just talk about all your favorite final fights. So head to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and rate, review, and subscribe, and listen to Final Fights. I think you'll really enjoy it. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is John Levingood.
How's it going, Mark?
Good. So, we're both right now. We're both in our kart cars right now, and we are cruising around the St. Pete track. Correct?
Right.
We're in the IndyCar racing mode. We're recreating the 2000 Champ Car season, the 2000 FedEx Championship Series. It was the 22nd in the kart era of U.S. open wheel racing, and it consisted of 20 races. How do you feel about that, John?
I feel like we don't fit in these vehicles very well, Mark. Both of us for our height and me for other dimensional challenges.
Yeah, I mean, birds hit me in the face occasionally, and when you and I are driving around Chicago or Toronto, and you hit a sewer cover off, a manhole cover off, and it hits me in the face.
You would die.
My head would be gone. My head. So you and I would be enjoying a nice chase. Actually, you're all moody, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go chase down John again. And I'm chasing you down. You're driving around the streets, causing havoc, and then you decapitate me.
So I don't know if you've seen Stuber, but there's a scene in Stuber where he throws like this little camping propane tank that's the size of a kid's-sized basketball out the window, and it hits this guy in the face, and it just impales his whole skull. It's something out of one of the Cube movies, and it makes me think of that, but with a manhole while we're driving Formula One like cars down Chicago streets.
Yep. So people don't get mad at us. This is Indy cars. And then
right, it's not actually Formula One.
And we covered that not week, but in our last episode that you and I did together, we covered Rush, which, let me tell you something.
Race pod.
I'm glad. Okay, two things could have happened. We cover this Driven first, and then we watch Rush. And then does it make us appreciate watching Rush before or after more?
Rush is such a solid standalone, Oscar baity kind of film. I think that Rush will survive either way, but I think that Rush ushered us instead into race car movies and eased us into Driven, which strikes me as a movie that was better at the time of its release, whereas Rush is a movie that is more timeless.
Absolutely, and I just think I have some. Can I drop some stuff on you before we get going on this? Because
not a manhole.
I'm going to drop you down a manhole. I'm going to trap you in there because you're going to bust an ankle for sure. And then I'm just going to wax poetic about this movie for you and drop some facts on you. How's that sound?
All right.
All right. So John,
I'm buckled in.
Let's drop you in there. Snap. All right. Now you're in the bottom of a sewer here. So this movie, right? It was produced by Franchise Pictures. And when X vs. Sever came out in 2017, I was tasked to write an article about it for a website. And in my research for Ballistic X vs. Sever, I found out about a production company called Franchise Pictures, independent motion picture production company and distribution company that worked with Warner Brothers. And it was founded by Elie Samaha and this guy Andrew Stevens, but it was mostly Elie. So in 2000, they had Boondock Saints. It didn't do well. However, it picked up on VHS. A little later on, Elie teamed up with Bruce Willis. And Bruce Willis' brother wrote The Whole Nine Yards. And so they got that made. And The Whole Nine Yards went around to make $100 million in the States. This led Elie to make Battlefield Earth with John Travolta, right? Then $44 million budget, it made $29 million. Then he went and made The Art of War, $60 million budget, made $40 million. Then he went and made Get Carter, $63 million budget, and it made $19 million. Then he made The Pledge, $35 million, made $29. He made 3,000 Miles to Graceland, $62 million, and it pulled in $19. Oof. Then he made Driven, which had a $92 million budget, and it made $54 million. Then he made Angel Eyes, $53 million budget, and it made $29 million. Then he went on to make more. X vs. Sever, $70 million, and it made $19 million. And then eventually he made The In-Laws, which lost money, Alex and Emma, which lost money, Spartan, which lost money, The Whole 10 Yards, which lost money. Then he went and finally he made A Sound of Thunder, $80 million, and it made $11 million in 2005. And his last film was Tristan and Isolde, which was, like under him. And then that went terribly wrong as well. But what this guy did, what Ellie did was, Sly wanted to make Driven for 4 years. Everybody said no, right? Everyone just said, we are not making this movie. What Ellie would do was, The Whole 9 Yards was written by Bruce Willis's brother. So he got him on, but I'll make that movie if you come, Bruce Willis. Battlefield Earth. Travolta wanted to get Battlefield Earth made. Everyone said no. And Ellie's like, I'll make it. Art of War, Wesley Snipes' passion project. Get Carter, Stallone passion project. 3,000 Miles to Graceland, Costner passion project. Driven was a Stallone passion project. Avenging Angelo, that's another Stallone passion project. So he went out and he found A-list stars who had movies that no major studios would make, and he got those made, and they all lost money. Do you want to know the one movie that he made a decent amount of money on?
Let's hear it.
Half Past Dead.
I didn't even see that.
13 million budget, made 19. So this guy in the 2000s is responsible for films that almost all of them are exclusively rotten, and only 1 or 2 of them actually made their budgets back. He suffered massive losses on a lot of his movies.
Are you building to explaining to our listeners how it is that he made so many subsequent money-losing movies and how this company still existed?
So what he did was, look at this thing. When he hit big with The Whole 9 Yards, that was 2000. Mm-hmm. So then he got into production. A lot of movies between 2000 and 2001. All those movies tanked by 2002. So before Hollywood was kind of keyed into him making these movies, they were already out and made. He was a hot property with Whole 9 Yards, and he used that to get a ton of movies made. So when all the receipts started coming in, all these movies were in production already being filmed.
So I have another question. Yeah. Do you think that after losing money in theaters relative to the budget, do you think that the 5-year post-theater run of video sales or DVD sales or whatever, do you think that they still lost money, or do you think a lot of these probably broke even?
Well, all right, which one of these could have done well? Ballistic X vs. Sever, Avenging Angelo,
I mean, when I just think
Miles
of like
to Graceland, Get Carter, Art of War, but none of these were like, this is a great time for rentals. So I think The Whole 9 Yards helped a lot. But Battlefield Earth, I don't see that making much money on DVD. I mean, that lost a lot of money. And you got to understand, on these movies, they also have P&R. So they have marketing, they have print, they have radio, they have television ads. They spend a lot of money marketing these films. So if they did break even, I would suggest they probably broke even on 1 or 2 of them, maybe. But by the time that you could even track that, they were out of business. And he's still making money. Like, this guy's out there still making money if you read about him. There's a New York Times article you can read, and he was fresh off he was hot after Whole 9 Yards. He was at a Lakers game, schmoozing with everybody, and this guy was like, yeah, Whole 9 Yards is good, but I don't think this Battlefield Earth is going to make it. He's like, his career's going to rest on that. He's like, he might be a flash in the pan. And I'm not saying anything bad. I'm not insinuating anything. I'm not accusing anything. I'm just letting you know this is how he got those movies made, and these were the results he had.
So that's funny because, like, all these movies that you listed that lost money, right? So I'm not counting The Whole 9 Yards right now. I'm not saying that they're good movies, but they're almost all movies I'll enjoy watching every 5 years. But I'll enjoy watching them from time to time. Yeah. Like, Battlefield Earth is a joy to giggle at, and I will choose to watch it sometimes.
Those baby Kubangos.
A few times in my life, like X vs. Sever. Again, years ago after Darth Maul, like, I wanted to see anything Ray was in. So, and Lucy Liu, why not, right? So it's like, I own that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I own Driven. I owned Driven since it came out on DVD, actually.
And I gotta tell you, this Driven DVD, if you are a fan of, Renny Harlin, I love, because on Deep Blue Sea, on Cliffhanger, which we've done episodes for, on almost all of his Blu-rays, not Long Kiss Goodnight, which sucks, but he does a lot of commentaries and documentaries. And do you want to hear what? So we watch a lot of movies, John, and I do a lot of research, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This movie, when it was a 220-page script by Stallone.
Wow.
He wanted to make it about F1, but F1 wouldn't allow him into their world, so he got into IndyCar. And you can see they are at every single race on the IndyCar circuit. They went the year beforehand and shot all the B-roll and footage. I mean, the production value on this is epic. This was a 4-hour movie, and it was more of a Rocky 5-esque, where Rocky trains a young guy. He's just there to kind of come back, have some glory. Much more nuanced, much more layered. They shot the 4-hour take. Renny Harlin cut almost all of Stallone's scenes with his love interest. Was it Luke?
Yeah,
Luke.
That was her nickname, yeah.
A lot of Gina Gershon's roles. And he cut a lot of that because he's like, people don't want to come see this. They want to see youth and vibrancy. That's why he cut it like a music. He even digitally took out Stallone in the scene where they're rescuing Memo, because he didn't want Stallone in there looking like a superhero.
No!
And they had a close relationship after Cliffhanger, Renny and Stallone. On this DVD, there are 50 minutes of deleted scenes. And Stallone does a commentary over all of them. Never once does he ever mention Renny Harlin. He just talks about how every scene added more layer and depth to the character. And they were all cut out. And at the end, he said, thank you to the actors. He didn't say anything about Renny Harlin.
Aww.
I have never heard... And so Megan was listening to it in the background. She was working. And she was like, Stallone is very articulate about what he's saying. He does 50 minutes of commentary over the deleted scenes, and he wishes they would have been in the movie. Because the finished product is a 4-hour movie that was hacked down to 2 hours.
Wait, is there somewhere the Stallone cut? Can I get the Stallone cut somewhere?
So he showed it to us in raw footage, and since the movie didn't do well in theaters...
Oh, it never made it to post?
It was nominated for 7 Razzies. Let's say this movie took off on DVD, and someone just said, hey, this movie's really fun, and you can just put it on, and you can enjoy it, and it does really well, and it becomes a cult classic. Then we get the Stallone cut, the Snyder cut. But this is not looking like it will happen.
20 years later, I want the Stallone cut.
But if you watch the DVD, and you listen to him talk over the 50 minutes, that car he's building, the movie starts with him building that car, and it ends with him and Luke driving that car away. It's his movie.
I like that.
And I think the 4-hour cut really, I think it hurt the 2-hour cut, because Jimmy Bly in this movie, played by Kip Pardue, he just looks at computers the entire time. And I don't think he ever says more than 2 lines of dialogue.
Unless he's complaining, unless he's being angsty.
He's supposed to be a side character, supporting character, and Stallone was the main character, and they cut all of Stallone's scenes out, so you get this really weird hybrid of a film.
That's interesting. It almost makes a little sense too now,
right?
Well, I guess the way that Rennie's vision of this goes with whoever he was working with for the soundtrack and the scoring, mostly soundtrack though I'm thinking of, is that this soundtrack was so of 2001.
Hey,
it was
nah.
Right. So it's funny. So I watched this twice this week, and the first time it was probably 5, 6, 7 years since I had seen it at least. Right. So the first time I saw it, I felt man, I like this. I'm enjoying this, but this is not nearly as awesome as I used to think it was. And then when I watched it the second time this week, I was realizing why. And then every time a song came on, I was because I'm not paying quite as close of attention to the movie, and I'm thinking about other things about the movie instead of what's happening in the movie. And I was reflecting on man, I would have loved this song when I was,
yeah.
This came out when I was 20. Jimmy Bly is in his 20s. This thing is scored for 20-something high school and college age people, And so like it's interesting how my memories of this are so fond. And